Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening. Fade to Black. How you doing? How you doing? Yeah, we're back. It's Wednesday, May 7th, 2025. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? I hope you're doing well. It's been a pretty busy week for me, as all of you gathered. I got back from Wisconsin. I am back, and we'll go through all of that in just a second. I just wanted to start off the show saying yesterday I had oral surgery that lasted for a very long time, and they put me under. And when I came out of it, by the way, being put under is amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. I'll do that anytime they ask. I'll say that. Anyway, so I come out of it and I was like, oh, okay, I'm fine. Wow, what's the big deal? I feel great. About an hour later, as everything wore off, wow. Okay. And I felt it coming. I just built up. I was like, oh no, this is the real thing right here. So pain meds, everything else, got really comfortable on the couch, and I didn't move for about 8 hours. But everything is fine now, except I'm swollen. You can see it. You guys can see it, and it's nice and it's big. I got this thing going on. I'm swollen. Implants on both sides on the lower parts of the jaw. And yeah, it's really swollen. But I don't feel it. Well, I feel the swelling, but I don't feel any pain, not like I did last night. So yeah, smiling. Yeah, it's just, yeah. People pack their cheeks so they can do a Marlon Brando. I don't have to fake it. No prosthetics for me to pull that off. Okay, so, but I'm back. I feel great. I had an amazing weekend at the Contact Modalities XPO. Melissa Kane and friends put on an amazing conference, and it's going to be a repeat performance again next year. I'm going to be hosting at the same amazing resort. I'll be showing some video and some other images later on, not tonight, but on another show, and to get everybody through it. Now, before we start the show tonight, I do want to say this. For those of you that have been with the show from the beginning, and there's a lot of you out there in the chat room and that have been with us, it's just thousands and thousands and millions of people. But I used to take in live calls. It was called Fader Night. And we ended that back in 2020, 2021 after doing that for 10 years. But anyway, one of the callers that all of you know was Heather from Mansfield. And she called in every single week, and we had the most amazing conversations week after week, year after year after year, from 2012, 2013, all the way to the end. So 10 years of phone calls with Heather from Mansfield. I'm at the conference, and she walks up to me. I've never met her. Don't know what she looks like. And I said, hi. She goes, hi, I just wanted to come up and meet you. I said, okay. She goes, I'm Heather from Mansfield. And I go, Mansfield, Ohio. That's cool. All right. What? Heather from Mansfield. And we hugged and had a chance to hang out all weekend. But it was like meeting my old best friend. And I hope she's in the chat tonight. She might be. It was perfect. Hanging out with her all weekend. And really quickly, somebody that's in the chat nearly every single night, Skyhawk 88, everybody. Got to hang out with Skyhawk all weekend long. And by the way, he looks just like his picture. Yeah. When he comes out and goes, Jimmy, it's me, Skyhawk 8. I was like, dude, you look just like your picture. Anyway, so Skyhawk 88 was there. And I got gifted, hello, Skyhawk. I know you're in the chat. You're lurking back there somewhere. Amazing to hang out with him. I'm looking at, Skyhawk 88 and Esperanza. She's right there. I hung out with her all weekend long. And it's so cool, right? And she lives right there, by the way. And so she can tell you that this was a perfect conference. And Esperanza, beautiful, absolutely beautiful, talented. Heather from Hansfield had a reading from Esperanza, by the way. So just a perfect way. See, we could do this all night long, and just talk about the conference, and so many of you were there. But anyway, I got gifted a bunch of stuff, so I just want to go through this really quick. This I got from Gary Rowley. This is Alienite. Look at that. It's incredible. It's meteorite, but it's got like 50 other minerals in it, and it's absolutely incredible. And it's euphoralight.com is his website, by the way. This is really, really cool. He's got a lot of amazing stuff. And so I'm doing a little shameless promotion for Gary. Very nice guy, by the way. So I got that from Gary. And everybody, Cindy Ginter. Cindy. And she came up to me, and she deals with pottery, and she has an Etsy channel, which is it is called Pottery God. Cindy Ginter, man, I got to hang out with her all weekend, and she made me this Fade to Black UFO mug. Look at, and it's art, man. This is just art. And she wanted to make sure I never ran out of coffee. And this is gloriously perfect. It is absolutely amazing. Cindy, you are the best. And I can't wait. I'm gonna start drinking out of this every night. So everybody, if I'm on this camera, see, I can, right. Cindy Ginter, amazing. Cindy, so great to hang out with you. And I was gifted this chunk of beautiful quartz crystal, and from McHenry Copper. And I also got this to help protect me here in the studio from all of my EM and EMF. Absolutely incredible. And I bonded with this. When you resonate with something, then you walk away with it. And it's absolutely incredible. And that is McHenry Copper, alchemycopper.com. All right. You guys go visit those, euphoralight.com and alchemycopper.com. All right. So that is that. This week, we had a short week this week. Monday, we were off air. I was at the expo. Yesterday, we were off the air because I was getting surgery done. But tonight, Bernie Beitman is back with us. We are going to be talking synchronicity tonight. Tomorrow night, Chris Bledsoe is here, UFO of God, and much more. And then Friday night, special Friday night show, because we've got a short week. Haley Ramsey is with us, and we're going to be talking about Egypt's influence on Great Britain and the rest of the world. I have 3 major events coming up. Contact in the Desert later on this month, which is May 29th through June 2nd, right here in Palm Springs, California. Then I head down to Peru with Brian Forster for the Inca Celebration of the Sun. That's in the middle of June. I come back from that for the PSI Games, August 1st through the 3rd, 2025. Charlottesville, Virginia. That's right. I am a game show host. All right. The Psychic Olympics. The links for everything are below. That is being held in Charlottesville, Virginia. And word has it that Bernie Beitman's going to be there. Yeah. So you can go just to meet Bernie. He's going to be running around tonight. Dr. Bernard Beitman is with us. We are going to be talking about synchronicity, and we're going to talk about his journey into the power of synchronicity and meaningful coincidence. And now all of these things are life-changing moments. I've talked about a lot on this show, and it is something that I am deeply, deeply interested in. He's an MD. He's a graduate of Yale Medical School, which means he's a lot smarter than me. He did his psychiatric residency at Stanford University, and he's the former chair of psychiatry of the University of Missouri Columbia Medical School, and he did that for 17 years. I would like to welcome back. His links are below over on our website and throughout social media. I'm going to go Bernie. I'm going Dr. Bernie Beitman, Bernie.
You go for it, Jimmy.
Yeah, amazing. And thanks for coming back on the show. And very excited to have you back. And you know what? Let's just get straight to it. Let's start swinging. Oh, you know what I didn't mention? Hold on a minute, Bernie. We got to pause the show. You stay right there. A friend of mine, Stacy, was at the conference, and she gave me, Bernie, have you ever had gooey butter cake?
Nope.
Have you ever heard of it?
My grandmother used to make something like that.
Yeah. Well, doctors don't recommend it, I hear. I don't know. Maybe they do. They used to recommend
for kids. Who cares? Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And she gifted me gooey butter cake from St. Louis. The first one, the gooey butter cake, I've eaten. I ate the whole thing. And it was good too, man. So anyway, here it is. This is, I'm saving the best for last, chocolate gooey butter cake. And this, it's thin, right? It's real thin. It's like, it's thin. And this thing weighs about 11 pounds. It's like, oh man. Anyway, gooey butter cake, chocolate gooey butter cake from St. Louis. And tonight after the show, Bernie, and you're an MD, right? Do you recommend me eating this in bed while watching a movie?
I got to look at your heart and how those arteries look first.
Yeah, probably not good.
Probably not good. That's a lot of butter.
Yeah, probably not good. You know what though, Bernie? I don't do the things that I love anymore. Right? I don't have cereal or milk or ice cream or sodas or I don't do carbs. I don't do potatoes anymore and bread. I cut that all out of my diet. I've lost over 20 pounds in the last, 3-4 months, trying to get myself back to playing, trying to get into shape. And because I want to be Bernie Beitman. That's what I want to do. I want to be able to, you know what I mean? I've given up everything, but there's a few things that I love that I can't give up. And one of them is butter. I can't do it, man. I cook with it. I enjoy it. I'm just not going to do. I don't care what my doctor says you got to give up butter. I'm going to go, well, put a fork in me then, because I'm not going to do it. I've done everything else to be healthy, but dang it. It keeps me young. Keeps me young, being happy, right? Okay, so let's start here.
Hey, Jimmy, while you're doing the promotional stuff, please do a promotional stuff for my new book, which just came out yesterday.
We're going to do that for the next 2 hours.
Okay, well, that's the one.
Yeah.
I just want, you did such a good promotion, all that stuff you did. I just want my book in the middle of all that. It was really a good intro.
And you know what though, Bernie, you're so right about that. When somebody gifts me something from the heart, right? Cindy Ginter, who I've known for years, she made me this with her
It's
hands.
lovely. It's lovely.
You know what I mean? She's going to get a shout out.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. I've known her forever, and she's been a huge supporter of the show. But that's, you know, and you're right. And this is your second time back on the show. Our last conversation was absolutely incredible. What? It's a high bar. We got to top that tonight. And we're going to do that.
You're coming to Charlottesville, Jimmy.
Yeah. Going to hang out with you.
That's where I live. And you're going to put me on the list. So we got a bunch of things, but I mean, the way that you heartfelt with such feeling about each of the things, particularly I like that thing, that EMF thing.
Yes.
I could feel the energy coming off of that. And
not a coincidence. Not a coincidence, Bernie.
That's a beautiful feeling that you got with that. And it's coming partly from you as well as the thing itself. And so that's why I'm saying, hey, Jimmy, put my book into this list, because it's a great feeling that you're communicating out here. That energy, it's more than just words. It's a feeling you've got.
And you know what? And so you've got, what made you, and then we're going to swing back because I have an opening question for you. You've got the most difficult. How long did you think about naming your website and making sure nobody could say
it? Coincider.com. That's right. Yeah. Well, I'm a little shy sometimes, so I was kind of like that, but it was a trick. Coincider is somebody who experiences coincidences, a coincider, but he or she is also a co-insider. So you're inside with other people experiencing something that generally people are not experiencing enough of. So I was trying to communicate both things that way.
Well, you know, some people will say they are actually coinciders. Oh, you like that?
Yeah, that's to say however you want. It's the idea that you experience a lot of coincidences. That's what the idea is.
Exactly. And everybody, Bernie's website is below, again, on our website and throughout social media. And you can check out everything that he does. And of course, the book is there too as well. Now, we'll circle back to that. I want to start with UFOs. I do. And Bernie's like, what? I want to start with UFOs. The media is now okay with the subject. Capitol Hill is okay with the subject. The Department of Defense is now okay with the subject. All of that falls under our career professionals and, of course, our elected officials that represent us. And now it has come down to our community. The entertainment world is now fully engaged with this, with TV shows and documentaries. The movies have always been there, but everything is happening at the same time. Is that a coincidence?
That's a global coincidence. Yes, a global synchronicity, when stuff happens in different places for different reasons around the same time.
And why? Why? I mean, with this subject of UFOs, why is all of this converging?
Your mind, my mind, the mind of all of our listeners and viewers are part of a global mind, the mind of the collective human organism. So we are beginning to see what you know very well is everything's connected, but how are they connected? That's what I'm interested in, not whether or not, how, because connections aren't all the same. And what we have now is increasing connectivity among the minds of human beings on this planet. And the UFO phenomenon, as you so well described, is an illustration of people for different reasons coming to the same set of thought patterns because we all feed off the same collective human mind.
Yale, Stanford. Let's throw in Harvard. We can go with Johns Hopkins. We can throw in a lot of very elite schools that have dealt with not only medical, but science and the hard sciences. Is this something that is starting to be discussed at an academic level now? Not only the phenomena itself, but how and causation?
I'm no longer any one of those. I made 4 touchdowns against Johns Hopkins. That's what I remember best. I don't know what they're doing there. I know they're doing psychedelic research and they're among the first. But how much this has penetrated academia, you've got to keep in mind the ironclad minds of people in academics where they have to follow regular materialistic science. So there are people thinking about them. There was a guy at Harvard who may have been assassinated because he was thinking about it, a psychiatrist there. Because when you start, you know this, bringing up stuff that goes against the way people are thinking, you stick your head up, you get shot. And in academics, that's still the case. Even if you showed the data, the kind of data you're talking about, a lot of academics still do this thing, which one of my favorite things, like for psi data, for example, a guy submitted a paper on telepathy to an academic journal, and the reviewer said, well, the methodology was very good. The statistics were very well done. The outcome of the statistics is valid. And the conclusions from the statistics follow from the statistics, but the conclusions they come to, I don't believe, so I'm rejecting the paper. That's the kind of closed-mindedness academics have. I did academic within psychiatry at the University of Missouri in 1996. I was able to do the first valid and reliable scale to measure coincidence sensitivity. I could do that because I was the chair of psychiatry and I had the money and I didn't have to ask anybody for it. And I didn't have to tell anybody much about it. So I got a lot of data from that. But that's the way it had to happen. I had to sneak it in then. And still now, the psychiatrists really still get me angry because they won't think about meaningful coincidences as something relevant to their work. For example, a lot of people come in to see their psychiatrist and say, I'm seeing all this stuff fitting together and it's kind of making me wonder if I'm crazy or not. If they come into the psychiatrist and they say that, the psychiatrist is going to do what you know they will do is, hey, here's some antipsychotic for you. So patients are still not telling their therapists, whether they're psychiatrists or not, about their synchronicities, and they're not telling them about their UFO experiences for the same reason.
But those academics have the same coincidences and synchronicities and deja vus that we all have. They know that something is going on, but I fear that it's just the funding environment, right? And if they drive out of their lane just a little bit, then they could jeopardize funding. And that is always, I think that is the roadblock and one of the concerns why there isn't more research done.
That's correct, but it's not the only reason. The main reason is they're stuck in materialistic thinking. And materialistic thinking means that consciousness is created by the brain. There's no evidence that that's true. A lot of people try to argue, but we haven't been able to get the good evidence to say that's true. It looks more like the brain has something to do with consciousness, but there's something much more going on.
Yes.
And one of the problems, Jimmy, is still, as much as you might talk about consciousness as being central and fundamental, we don't have good definitions of the consciousness. And I will present to you, I'd like to see what you think, a beginning definition of consciousness that our viewers and listeners can understand. Okay?
Let's go.
It starts with what you do very well, is observe your own mind. Observe what's going on in your mind, your thoughts, your feelings, your intuitions, your sensations. You can observe them and then draw conclusions or about what to do about them. The fundamental thing is you, I, and everyone listening to us, and probably a majority of our audience, can view the goings on in their own mind. Well, what is it that is viewing, that is observing the goings on in our mind? And I call that your self-observer. And your self-observer is the little bit of consciousness that each of us carries with us. We don't have to go out to vast spaces of the universe. We can begin with the consciousness that's already with us in some form or another and begin to get to know this awareness and use that to expand out into other minds and further than that.
I love that. Very
Thank you.
well said. Actually, normally I would go, but I don't have a but. I don't have a but there. But we're going to expand on that thought. I have had many scientists on this show, and I asked just about every guest. It doesn't matter what their background is or what they're on the show about. It could be Bigfoot or whatever. But I'm going to ask them about their definition of consciousness, and I usually follow up with that: is it physical or non-physical? And the scientist side, the materialist, will go, no, it's simple. It's chemical. It's a chemical process, right? And that's where I go. Cover your ears, Bernie. That's where I go bullshit.
Of course.
And you know, and you know why? In the hard sciences, their methodology is observe, test, results, repeat. Right? Measure, right? All of that, that's it. That's it. That's their model. So if it's a chemical process, then friggin' measure it then. If it's a chemical process, you've now got everything that you need to go and find out how it starts, where it is, measure it, repeat it. Because they can't, then therefore it's not a chemical process and it's not physical. It starts somewhere else. And that's it. That nobody, I don't care what the PhD is, can argue their way with me out of that. And I'm not a PhD, right? But there's no other way to explain it. If you can't right now, they are working on string theory. And when we talk about quantum physics and quantum mechanics, string theory is the smallest of the small. Can't observe it, can't see it, right? But apparently they've got math that supports it. So if you can do that, then get at the chemical process that is creating consciousness. But they can't. So well, I win that argument. I win that debate.
Yes, you do. And I'm going to expand your argument. See what you think about it. When you say string theory, I like to play the bass, pretend like I'm playing the bass. That's what I think is string theory is. So I can't get that. Quantum physics is really hard to understand, and yet it's used to explain a lot of different things. Okay, some people think they understand it, but it's a fig leaf over ignorance to some great degree. But let's start with that wonderful EMF thing you showed us, because there's the clue, and I'm so glad you showed that, because I can feel it, Jimmy. I can feel it through our cameras here. There's energy in there being I can feel that.
I feel it go. I picked this up. This arm feels different than this one.
Yeah.
It's
So
crazy.
let's talk about from science, and I'm pretty much a scientist. I want to be able to almost touch it, but feeling is part of touch. And I can feel bioelectromagnetic fields between me and other person, between me and trees, and between you and me holding that EMF circle that you've got. So let's take that. Now, the chemicals, that's just a stupid way to talk about it as consciousness, because the chemicals in your brain start neurons from being being activated. Neurons create electromagnetic fields. Those electromagnetic fields sum up and create an electromagnetic field about the brain. The brain has several different frequencies by which it fires. But the slower ones are about 7.8 hertz up to about 50 hertz. That's a frequency range. And is it just a coincidence that that we have around us the Schumann resonance, which is a vibrational field between the ionosphere and Earth's surface that seems to also fluctuate at the same rate as the human brain does. Not quite the same, but we grew up, our brains did. So our brains are connected to the Schumann resonance. So already there's suggestions that what goes on in our brains electromagnetically is connected to what goes on in the atmosphere around us. And that's just a start.
Is there, or what people talk about tapping into that? There's so much iron, right? There's so many metals in our body, in our bloodstream, and in our brain. Can we naturally just tap in? We all have that ability if we know what to do. And are we locked into it all the time and are not aware of it?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by the it, so I'll make some guesses.
I'm talking about the Schumann resonance.
Oh, yeah.
Toroidal
field. And the toroidal thing. We are in it all the time.
Right.
We're in it all the time. But what I'm getting to is the experience of individuals of electromagnetic fields among and between people. So that the way you are, if I was in the same room with you as I think the people you hung out with were, I can get a feeling of what your energy feels like. And it's more than just your emotions. You emote electrobiomagnetic fields around you. And people are attracted to the vibration that you are able to put out. I can feel it through this. You have a big heart and you vibrate. You have a great resonance in you. You're usually authentic. I'm sure you can make a fake thing up too sometimes, and you have to, but you're mostly an authentic guy. And that authenticity is something that makes it easy for people to use their own resonance, what I call their primary resonance, or their primary signal frequency within them, like a thumbprint. It's yours. And when I'm in that state and you're in that state and we can be comfortable with each other, we can resonate together, and that feels good. And the result of that, if you pay attention to it, is that we can begin to be telegraphically, we can telepath with each other. We can begin to read each other's biofields. Mm-hmm. We can begin to read what's in each other's minds. Words become helpful, but not necessary. So in those fields, we are experiencing a form of consciousness.
I live here in LA, in Hollywood in general, and I love my town. Okay, I do. But you go into a restaurant here, just walk in, and everybody in there is wearing a mask. Everyone.
Yes.
Every single, you can tell. So I go to this conference in Wisconsin, and you walk in there, and everybody is unmasked, right? And you can tell.
It's such a relief.
Yes.
It's such a relief.
It's amazing. There's no BS going on.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I go to dance a couple of times a week. Not much talking. And there's a similar thing to what you're describing. As the dance gets more and more intense, the connections start happening more and more. Not all of them. Some people don't like each other. They don't connect with each other. But the general feeling is one of really good resonance with each other. And occasionally, I find someone or that person finds me, and we are resonating on the dance floor together, and we melt together in a beautiful moment.
I've seen that movie. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And people can pick up on that. The show's not about me, it's about you, but just let me say this. When I go up on stage and I look out at the crowd, I now have 300, 400, 500, 1,000, 2,000 people that are focused on me.
Yeah.
I can feel it.
Yeah.
I can feel it. It drives me, right?
Yeah.
And why is that? Because I'm not wearing a mask. They know. I may piss some people off, but it's just because I'm being honest.
That's right.
Right. I'm not wearing a mask.
Do you know why it pisses people off, Jimmy?
Why is that?
Because they don't like to see that you're doing what they would like to do.
That's exactly right. Yes. And that's why
let me add to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I am able to do more and more of those direct connections with people where we resonate. Sometimes I have to go through that mask because I see something underneath and because they see something in me, and we connected. This happened a couple of weeks ago. Really good connections with people. And I emailed them afterwards and let's keep connected. And they didn't like the way I'm evolving. They didn't like the way I acted. Well, what they didn't like was they connected with me in a really good way. One of the people I hugged twice, different times, she cried because it felt so good to be real with me and I'm being real with her. And then she rejected me. Some people are afraid of that kind of openness with themselves and with other people.
It's hard. And it actually comes down to a very simple concept. Okay. And I'm not some guru. Remember David Carradine, Kung Fu? You remember his guy, right?
Yeah.
Take the stones, right? And he would always wax this philosophical crap, right? To turn right, you must first turn left, grasshopper. You know what? Okay. I'm not that guy, but I will say this. I'll say this. Doing the right thing is hard. Doing the wrong thing is easy. It's that simple. And
I think it's hard, Jimmy, to get where you've gotten, because it's been hard for me to keep evolving, to be able to be myself. It's not that easy. There's so many barriers.
It's not easy at all. You know what's easy? What's easy? Evolve.
That's
easy. Anybody can do that.
And our job, I'm going to
have to work at it. You don't even have to work at it. You just do. I'm going to
do my commercial here, Jimmy, because we're getting near the end of this part of the hour. My job is to help people use synchronicity to help themselves evolve. That's why I wrote this book, Life-Changing Synchronicities. It's not about the theory or model or categorization of synchronicities. It's about my synchronicities, the synchronicities of my life. Starting when I was 8 or 9, my dog got lost. I got lost. We found each other. That was one of the most wonderful moments of my life because I loved that puppy. We got back together again. That got me started with this. And the reason I wrote this book is, yes, to put my story out there, but it's to be more a mirror for the reader. So the reader can see, here's this guy who's had a lot of meaningful coincidences in his life. Can I somehow relate to some of these and see that mine aren't only mine, but they are part of a general group of coincidences that are common, and that if I'm experiencing something weird, so are other people, because he experienced it, I'm experiencing it, so other people are experiencing it. So I can then say I'm not alone, and that I am more connected to other people around me than I ever realized.
How do let's stay right here. We'll do this for the rest of the show. And we'll set this up for the return, of course. But how it's twofold. How do people start to understand and recognize synchronicities and meaningful coincidences when they happen? There's that. And the second part of that, and you can answer both at the same time. The second part of that is, how do we start to get people that that choose to not to see this? They don't care. They don't think that there's anything else in this life, and these things don't occur. So yeah. So first part is,
So let's do
how
the
do we
second
start
part.
to-
The
Okay.
second part's easier. That's easier.
Okay.
I heard a reference to Mark McGuire's bat earlier today
Yes.
on your
Yes.
face. So the only thing I can do is hit them with a baseball bat, which usually doesn't work. I have tried to be able to talk with people who don't think they exist. Jeffrey Mishlove, who you very well know, he was on my show. I've been on his, and I asked him about synchronicities, which is what I do. So he had one that involved a great uncle.
Oh,
where
really?
he
What happened?
It was he had some dream about his great uncle, and then the dream had something to do with his great uncle dying, and then his great uncle had died, and so he was at a distance from him. And you said earlier that we can know what's going on with loved ones at a distance. I was so glad you said that, because you know that it's common. I call my son when his dog is really sick and he's crying, and he picks up the phone, he's crying. I connect with him. Human beings do that with loved ones. You know that. So Jeffrey Mishlove could do that with his great uncle, whatever, I forget his name was. And then he asked his psychology professors at the University of California at Berkeley, how does that happen, that I knew something about what he was going on with him? They said, no, that can't be. We don't know. So that set him up, Jeffrey, to get the first and maybe only PhD in parapsychology issued in the United States. But I asked him about other ones, and he says, that's the only one. I said, you what? He said, that's the only one.
Jeffrey? You would think Jeffrey's having that stuff all the time.
I think he is. And so that gets us to your first question.
Right.
Is how is it that people come to discover a coincidence when it's happening? The first thing is, what Jeffrey didn't do as long as I talk with him, is you got to be open to the possibility that they exist. Well, we might talk about explanations for synchronicities. The first cause of synchronicity is your willingness to see it. It's a psychological thing first. You have to be willing to notice it. If you don't notice it, it's kind of like the tree falling in the forest. If nobody hears the sound, the noise doesn't make a sound. You can argue about that. But with synchronicity, if you don't see it, it doesn't exist for you. Somebody else can see it and tell you about it, which happens. But if it doesn't exist, if you don't see it, it doesn't happen. And so they're happening with Jeffrey, I bet a lot. But
it happens to everybody all day long, every day, whether you're looking for them or not.
So that's the question. So I did this research I told you just to prove, or at least substantiate what you just said, that they happen frequently. And we did the valid and reliable thing you're supposed to do. And yeah, we could say certain coincidences are very common. And you, again, picked out the most common one in your earlier remarks when you said somebody you haven't heard from years, and you start thinking about them and they call you. Well, that's telephone telepathy, I would call it. And that's the most common meaningful coincidences among the common meaningful coincidences. So you have to have them. You have to get people confirming that they're important. You have to believe that you're not crazy. Let's keep that in mind, because there's a lot of people who think they're crazy if they have these. So if they come to my book, for example, and read some of these stories and see how crazy some of them are, and I'm a little crazy, and so are you, but that's good. My mind is open, and you can see that I can imagine hitting the first pitch of a playoff game for a home run. And I step up to the plate, the bottom of the first. I'm the first batter, and over it goes the center fielder's head. What I imagined happening, and I wanted to have happened. And I was not a home run hitter. I won the batting title in high school on bunting, not by hitting home runs. So imagining, precognition, but it's more than that. You can make coincidences possible by being aware of the possibility and then acting in ways that help them to happen.
And stepping up is Bernie Beitman. He's 5 for 5 in his last at bats. He's having an amazing night tonight.
Hey man, you picked out
he swings on the first pitch.
You picked out. You could have picked out a lot of numbers, Jimmy. You picked 5 for 5. Man, you are talking right from my book. There's a story right from my book that you didn't read, but you picked it up. So I'm glad you're listening.
I have the book. That's not a coincidence.
No, but you picked it up somehow. So I got to tell you the 5 for. Right. I got to tell you the 5 for 5 because that's great.
Yeah, tell me 5 for 5.
I go.
Isn't that great?
That's like a relative.
See, but that's a synchronicity. That right there. If somebody wants proof of the universe and synchronicities, I mean, Jesus, we just did it live on the air.
We just did it live on the air, and it's telepathic, Jimmy. That's
I love it.
That's what I think it is. We're reading each other, and
I love it. 5 for 5. Tell me 5 for 5.
All right, so my senior year is where the 5 for 5 happened, but my junior year, I won the batting title hitting .486. I had 17 hits, and 7 of them were bunts. And so that's how I won the batting title. That's how I got invited to a Pirates tryout camp. So the next year, the beginning of the season, I'm leading off, and the first 5 times I'm up, I go 5 for 5. And then comes this guy who's a tackle on the football field and one of our pitchers, bigger than me, who went to the Pirates tryout camp with me because he's big and he had the car. And he says from the bench, as I'm rounding first base, loud enough for everybody to hear, Beitman got lucky. The ball had dropped over the shortstop's head, so it was one of those bloopers. Beitman got lucky. That blew me away because it broke the trance I was in. My teammate was saying something out loud that really got me out of the zone. And so I only ended up batting .400 my senior year because I got a lot worse after 5 for 5. The same guy the same guy that's tackle on the football team, I'm going for a touchdown against one of our arch rivals that same senior year. I'm out in the clear. I'm up on my toes. I'm going for the goal line, about 30 yards away. Nobody's around. Then this guy bumps into me and knocks me down. There was no other opponent player around. He knocks me down. So I'm saying, is this a coincidence? And then it happens in college. I'm going for a touchdown, and a lineman, runs into me. I'm out in the clear. So I began to see how guys on my own team would be jealous of me. So this was another series of coincidences where 3 players on my team were playing for the same reasons, knocked me down because they were jealous of me.
So was that the universe telling you need to get into the medical field and get out of sports?
No, it was the universe telling me you better go to Yale
Yeah, right.
Medical School because they have a rugby team and you can play rugby there. So I played rugby at Yale for 3 years.
You were all about that. Baseball, football, rugby.
Oh man, I love running with the football.
Some people can, some people can't. And now let's actually stay right here if we can. Neil deGrasse Tyson would say that it would have happened anyway, that it's math. It's all determined. There is no free will. And that's a disturbing concept for a lot of people to wrap their head around, but it's also the basis of a lot of scientists' thought patterns.
Yeah, it's true. And so to answer that question, I interviewed a guy who had written a book called The Science of Free Will. And he agrees with Neil deGrasse that this is all stuff that is sequentially or not sequentially. It's all like a lot of stuff running together that looks like it's predictable. The trouble, Jimmy, is there are so many variables that we can't really predict the outcome. Us human beings can't predict the outcome. So we have to act as if we have free will. I like to say, you have free will, you've got no choice. So we act as if we do because we don't know what all these universal things are predicting. So we have to make choices in the midst of all of that.
Well, and here's where the problem starts. If you just go with Newtonian physics to predict the outcome of throwing a baseball, right? And its velocity, right?
Oh, you can predict.
What,
yeah.
You know exactly, right? And so that basic math right there, that basic thing,
you got it.
Stuff millions of years in the future. You know, if you have the numbers to plug in. All right, I get that. All right. But I don't think Newtonian physics, if I leave my house in search of a double cheeseburger, that it can be predicted where I'm going to go and what kind of cheeseburger I'm going to get and what's going to be on it. Correct. I think that's where free will comes into play.
Correct. We have to act as if we're.
But they'll argue that, though. They will argue that. They will argue what I just said to you. They'll go, "Well, no, let's run the math on this." Yeah, you would have definitely gone to Tom's Charburger number 4 and got grilled onions. Yeah.
Some of them didn't play football and baseball because there's so many unpredictable things that happen out there. I mean, there's a stone on the ground. Who knew it was going to hit that? Or some guy sticks out his. They will
argue. Isn't that crazy though? They will argue that the fundamental argument that they have with that, and in a weird way, it's kind of hard to debate, but it's math, man. You go back to the beginning of the universe, particles are colliding and combining, and
yeah.
everything after that is
Oh, yeah.
just going to happen all the way to that football game, and you tripping over that pebble was mathematically going to happen. There was no other outcome. I don't know, man. I don't know. Fran Tarkington throws left instead of throwing right. I think there's some free will in there, man.
Well, you can do the argument they do, but let's not do it ourselves, because we know that there's some stuff you just got to pretend as if there's free will. But let's go on the other side of it, Jimmy. Let's do the way you were arguing. The way you were arguing was fundamentally based on the impression you were trying to make on me. And let me talk about the specifics of that.
Sure.
Each time we talk, every time we talk, and just watch how I'm talking, I'm trying to put you, the listener, into a role that I want you to be in. My nonverbals, my voice tone, my gestures. I'm saying, Jimmy, I want you to listen to how smart I am and how much I know, and you better pay attention. I exaggerated that. When those guys do their mathematical I'm so smart thing, they kind of overwhelm us with, look how much smart I am and how fast they talk and how they skip things. And it reminds me of Johnny Hopkins. Yeah, he went to Johns Hopkins. Johnny Hopkins was a classmate of mine in high school, very smart. So Johnny Hopkins goes up to the board in algebra 2. And he says, I'm going to prove that 1 + 1 = 3. I'm going to prove 1 + 1 = 3. So Johnny Hopkins writes this stuff all over the board. There was like there's 3 sections of the board. He's writing and writing. 1 + 1 and whatever, all kinds of other stuff equals 3 at the end of it. Well, we had to say, well, what happened? How did that happen? He showed us a place in the middle where he did something that was tricky, which was too fast for us to see, where he made a transformation that was incorrect, but led to the outcome that he wanted it to have.
You're good. You're real good. You're real good. Check this out. As we head to the break, you're being flirted with in the chat room. Oh, Bernard.
Oh, gosh.
How cute are you? But yeah, and you know, I have feelings. I have empathy.
You have feelings.
For people that don't care about this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you? I mean, billions of people do. So it's not like it's one person. It's billions of people that just live their life, their existence daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, to the end of all, with zero consideration of any of this. Wow. I would say boring is what comes to mind first. But, you know, there's so much more to life. But that just don't stop and ponder the significance of something else going on.
In order to do that, those people need to have a self-observer. They have to observe their own minds. And that involves critical thinking. I don't mean just criticizing thinking. I mean analyzing what comes into your mind, seeing it and analyzing. That's why synchronicity is so important, because it makes you think about what's in your mind and how that relates to what's outside your mind. What you're describing in these boring people are people who have not developed their ability to observe their own minds the way you and I have.
I talked about this experience yesterday in surgery, and it was surgery. It's like, it's not a joke. It's like, this isn't a little dentist's office. You walk in there and you see that it's an operating room, right? So, but going under, I saw and felt my brain, my thought, my consciousness connecting to the things that I talk about on this show, because you're going deep. You know what I mean? You are disconnecting, and it was incredible. It was incredible. I'm not going, well, maybe I am. I'm not going full psychedelics. I'm not, but maybe I am. All I know is they were playing this crazy ass flute music right in the background. They're playing that, and that Peruvian mountain flute music, right? That's going on in the background.
Beautiful. I like that.
And they do their thing, and it was quick too. By the way, it was just like 1, 2, pop,
bye,
and the music. Yeah. No, I never heard of 5. So anyway, and it was joyous. It was beautiful, and for that time, I was experiencing my higher self. It was really cool.
Could you describe what that's like, Jimmy? Experiencing your higher self?
I was in conversation with myself. My eyes were closed. I closed my eyes, and I could hear what was going on around me. I heard them talking, but I heard, and my eyes were closed, but the interaction with them, I just want to say this so everybody understands what I'm saying. They were all connected by light.
Yeah.
Okay. It was crazy. It was nuts. And they were the way that they were speaking and thinking. I was watching this stream of consciousness and light go between them in the room, and I was and I was talking to myself about it, and it was amazing, man. It was incredible. Tell
us about the conversations that you were having.
Yeah, man, maybe when we're 3 minutes past the break, when we come back,
I'll get
into that. But it was more me talking to them. Okay, so the conversations were, I literally was saying, I said, "You guys are great." I'm saying this in my mind. You guys are amazing. This is so cool to see you guys work like this. But my eyes were closed, but I could see, you know what I mean? And it was colors. This thing going on. And yeah. And so, and then you know what happened? Okay, I'll say this and then we'll go to a break. My doctor, and she's amazing, and I've had consultations with her and stuff, and she's really cool. She's very strong, personality-wise. All good surgeons are. Okay, cocky's the right word. That's the word you can use.
They get in trouble for that sometimes. Yes.
You know what? I want a cocky surgeon. I do, man. I do. Anyway. You don't want a surgeon that goes, well, maybe. No,
you don't. No, you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, outside the surgery, they get in trouble for it. That's
right. Oh, for sure. So I come out of it, right? And maybe she's listening or whatever, or somebody, one of the other medical people that was in there. I said, I swear to God, first thing out of my mouth, I looked at her and I go, "Are you married?" Just like that. I was like, what? It just came out of my mouth, and it was just, I'm not going to say what happened after that. Everybody laughed, but I was like, what did I just say? But it was really funny. Are you married? So, all right, let's take our break. Bernie Beitman is with us tonight. We are talking about synchronicities. This is Fade to Black. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Backley Tappy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. Today we're headed to Bolivia, Tiwanaku, Peru, and of course, Pumapunku. Brian, exciting. Thank you so much for everything, my friend.
Always an honor. Right behind us is the sacred river of the Inca that goes past Machu Picchu. So we're going to be driving up to its source at 15,000 feet above sea level and then down to Lake Titicaca.
So today we hit 15,000 feet.
Yes.
Crazy. And you can do it with us. All you have to do is go to hiddenincatours.com. Simple. We've got 2 tours coming up next year, one in June for the summer solstice, right? And then another one right here in November. So hiddenincatours.com. Come and hang out with Brian and I and his amazing team.
Right on.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Dr. Bernard Bernie. Beitman is with us, and tonight we're talking about synchronicities, one of my favorite subjects. And Bernie, earlier you mentioned 1 + 1 = 3. How many synchronicities equals a meaningful coincidence? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? Bernie, can you hear me? Bernie, can you hear me? Bernie cannot hear me. Bernie, are you there? Something is happening. This is a meaningful coincidence. Bernie, can you hear me? He's blinking. I'm on. I'm not muted. Okay, Bernie. Okay, Bernie cannot hear me. I don't know. Oh, Bernie, your headphones. Now you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay. Man, I just said the most important things of my life and you didn't hear any of it. So
That's the
now
way it goes.
I have to repeat it. All right. So the question was earlier you said 1 + 1 = 3. How many synchronicities equals a meaningful coincidence? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3?
And the meaning is again in the mind of the observer, of the experiencer, or the coincider. The meaning is what we make of it. Is there meaning in the coincidence itself becomes a question. And one way to understand that is the lower the probability of the coincidence, the more likely there is meaning inherent in it. The lower the probability, the more likely there's meaning inherent in it. If it's a high probability thing, then you make up the meaning. But if it's a low probability, you got to keep looking a little further.
Okay. And so let's take this a step further. You have a couple of synchronicities that happen same day, day apart, or whatever. But at what point, I understand the personal side of this and the observer side, but at what point do you take it serious and act?
There are many different points to take it seriously. The times that we tend to take them seriously are during times of transition. During times of transition or crisis, we're more likely to see meaningful coincidences, partly because we're looking around for them because we're in some kind of trouble. Usually something's going on. And when those periods of time when they're more likely to happen are when a loved one dies. That's a stressful event for most people. And often we look for clues that that loved one is sending to us that they're okay on the other side. And if we're looking, we're more likely to find it. And sometimes there are really funny ones. So one of my favorites is like the grandfather dies. They go to the funeral. The kids take the grandmother back to the house. It's winter, someplace in New England, and as they're walking into the house, next to the stairs going up to into the house, a flower is blooming in the middle of winter, and flowers don't usually do that. And this was his favorite flower that was blooming right then. And that coincidence became extremely meaningful to that woman whose husband had just died because it happened right then, and it was deeply related to her deceased husband.
The other part of this is a string of patterns that are out there in front of you that help you guide yourself through life and on your journey. And that's part of it, right? To see the patterns, and others will ignore the patterns and play the victim card instead of following the signals and the patterns that are right in front of you to help guide you out of something, so you don't have to play the victim card, right?
That's right. And fundamentally important to what you just said, Jimmy, is being able to recognize patterns. I mean, some of the people that you're referring to earlier who just don't see things don't really recognize patterns. This resembles that. It requires a kind of thinking to be able to notice that this pattern resembles that pattern. And that's fundamental to science, serendipity in particular, to be able to see this thing happen here and that thing happen there, and they're not the same, but they're similar. So you get to see two patterns that are similar, And then you begin to wonder what pulls them together. If you're not good at recognizing patterns, you don't see the coincidence and you don't see the clue. Would you like an example of that?
Yes, I do. I was just going to ask you for an example, and that's
Oh,
not
thanks.
a coincidence.
Thanks for asking, Jimmy. One of the most famous serendipity involved the discovery of penicillin. Alexander Fleming was a Scottish researcher who wanted to find a cure for bacterial infections. What they were using sulfa drugs back in the 1920s, and for World War I, the sulfa drugs didn't work very well. So a lot of people died on the battlefield afterwards because of gangrene and other infections. So Fleming wanted to find some other way to be able to cure those infections. So in 1921, 1922, he was in his laboratory and had some petri dishes. Petri dishes are these circular things that have in it food that bacteria like to grow on. So there were some bacteria growing in these petri dishes that might have been streptococcal. I don't remember. And he had a cold. Alexander Fleming did. So his nasal drippings fell on the bacteria growing on the petri dish, and Fleming noticed that where the drops from his nose fell, there became what he called a circle of inhibition. In other words, the bacteria were not growing there in the middle where the nasal drippings fell. So Alexander Fleming said, must be something in the nasal drippings that's killing those bacteria. Well, they're called lysozymes. It was really hard to make a lot of them out of your nasal drippings. They needed more than that, but didn't know how to do that. So in 1928 or 29, Fleming came back from a vacation, and instead of cleaning up all his petri dishes before he left, he just dumped them all in the sink. And it was kind of like to see what would happen, which is the way serendipity happens. Let me just see what happens. So let's see what happens. So he comes back and he sees that same halo and inhibition on some of the petri dishes. But this time he sees a golden fuzzy halo around where the halo of inhibition had been, as if this golden fuzzy halo had something to do with killing the bacteria in the middle of it. Well, they called it mold juice because it was a mold that was growing on the petri dish. And they wondered, this mold juice have some antibacterial capacities. Well, Fleming presented these findings in 1929. He's such a boring guy that nobody paid attention to him because this was an amazing thing. This mold juice killed the stuff. They ended up calling this mold juice penicillin, and they didn't know what it really was. So somebody over at Oxford, he was in London, was using this mold juice to clean flasks out of bacteria, to kill the bacteria in flasks people were using in biological studies. Well, eventually somebody started using the mold juice to see if it killed bacteria in guinea pigs. If they had to pick rats or the other way around, the mold juice would have killed the guinea pig, but would have killed the rats, but it didn't kill the guinea pigs. They infected the rat or the guinea pigs with the bacteria, and the guinea pigs recovered. Then they did it with a guy who had an infection, and they had to keep making the doses high, but seemed to help him, and a few other trial and error things. So they thought they had something, but the question is how do we make a lot of this stuff? This was 1944. This was World War II was happening. Again, a lot of soldiers were dying on the battlefield. How could they help prevent them from dying from infections, from gangrene? And the penicillin looked like the answer. So these two guys from London got on a plane to the United States with the bacteria, with the mold juice hidden under their coats, and wanted to be able to see if they could find a place where this mold juice this penicillin mold could grow well. Well, they didn't know where to go, but they ended up in a place in Iowa or Indiana that made corn liquor. Okay, a lot of corn in Iowa or Indiana, and this corn liquor was used for something, but that didn't work very well. So they sent people from the army all over the world to see if they could find places where they could get this penicillin to grow a lot. Well, somebody who became known as Moldy Mary, which I think is a terrible thing to do to this woman, was a research assistant in the laboratory where the corn liquor was being brewed. And she just went down to the local market. I think it might have been Peoria. Yeah, so it was Illinois. And she was in the market and she sees this melon with this golden fuzz growing on it. And she says, I wonder if this is that penicillin mold. So right under their noses, which is one of the things that happen with serendipity, go all over the world. So this research assistant brings it back in. It grows like wild in the corn liquor, and they were able to produce multiple batches of penicillin so that many troops lives were saved because of this discovery. Now, I'll repeat a little bit of this. It took several different coincidences, serendipities, for this to happen. Fleming
That's incredible. That's incredible. And here's the thing with that. We take antibiotics for granted today.
Yes, we do.
Right? Yeah. And I'm taking amoxicillin. Why? I had the oral surgery yesterday and I've got open stuff that's going on right now. But just a generation ago, one lifetime, man, is when all of this kicked off. And we don't understand how many lives have been saved, but this hasn't been going on for hundreds of years. This is one lifetime ago. I'll tell you a funny story about this and dental work. This is how crazy it was. We've all heard of Warner Brothers, right? Warner Brothers Records, Warner Brothers Studio, the movie company, Warner Brothers, right here. Well, the Warner Brothers were real. There were 3 of them.
Yeah.
Okay. The Warner Brothers. One of the Warner Brothers, and you can look this up, left Hollywood for a vacation in Cuba and didn't come back. You know why? It's 1939. Got a toothache in Cuba. Tooth got infected and he died. That's 1938. You know, that is how crazy this is. And like I said, we take all of this for granted today. But if it wasn't for those series of coincidences that happened in a row for a reason, right? The universe doing all of that to get us to antibiotics. That's an incredible story. Incredible.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And a lot of people don't tell it past the Alexander Fleming part of it with
I don't in science class, and my teacher was brilliant my freshman year in high school. I gave the Fleming story, and as he should, but he didn't give us that version. of
No.
the Fleming story.
They
Right.
don't do the whole thing. Moldy Mary should have gotten a Nobel Prize.
Absolutely.
Should have shared it because it wouldn't have happened without her. The guys who came from England, two of them got the Nobel Prize with Fleming. And when this happens, Jimmy, a big thing like this, a Jungian writes about this and says when you get a series like this, and you have been talking indirectly about series of coincidence, not just one, but a series. This is one of the most remarkable series of coincidences we have in our recorded history. When you have them happening, you begin to wonder, and you use the word the universe. And I prefer not to use the term the universe because I don't know what that is, just like I don't know what consciousness is. But it makes me think about the global human mind and about the concentrated effort of multiple minds. Somehow, again, going back to what you emphasized, our interconnectedness, that the interconnectedness between Fleming and Oxford, and one of the guys was from Germany, had escaped the Nazis to be in the lab where they were starting to use penicillin to treat people. And then they go to Peoria and they don't know what to do. And there's Moldy Mary and all the other stuff that happened in between. That's too crazy. That's too low probability of a sequence to not wonder what other forces are happening.
Yeah, and the materialist out there, and there's a lot of good people that are materialists. I'm not
that he says in a nice way.
Yeah, as I say in a nice way.
I don't mean,
how to offend everybody, and then
by being a nice guy. Yes.
Yeah. But that will again, just like the pebble on the football field, that will come back and argue this all day long, and I just don't get it. And is it as simple as entanglement? Is that what is going on? Is it entanglement? Is that too fundamental?
No, it's okay. You asked the question, Jimmy Church, fade to black.
Yes, I did.
You'd asked the question. So I, Bernie Beitman, am asking you, what do you mean by entanglement?
That all particles, I don't get this from science. I get this from what I've learned. Every particle in the universe is connected. Every one is connected to another particle. I said to you earlier before the break when I proposed marriage to my surgeon yesterday that while I was I was watching this light connect all of them as they were working in the room. Was I observing entanglement? Was I observing their minds working with each other? What, in a surgical team like that, that's beautiful synchronicity going on, man, all at the same time, right? Just pop, 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 pop. Am I observing entanglement? And I would say, yes, I think I was.
I'm not. This is one of those times when I politely don't try to argue, because this is the way you say it. You're fairly clear about what you mean, and I will say that the word entanglement means lots of different things. What I would say is that you were observing the group mind operating together.
Yes, I was. Yes,
that's what I would say.
You know what Einstein called it? Freaky action at a distance. And he couldn't explain it. But I would say that it goes beyond a couple of particles. I'm saying that all are connected. Every particle at any distance with anything in between blocking. Yeah.
I'm not going to try to respond to that, Jimmy, because you are very convinced of that.
Do you think it could be something else? When we talk about telepathy or deja vu, or the other day, 2 nights ago, I called my brother. He's been on my mind. I called my brother Danny. It's some things you can't make up. All right. Now you can say what you want, but this, so I was like, man, dang it. It's been on my mind. So I called him 2 nights ago. I just got back, from the airport. Pick up the phone and call my brother Danny. I said, hey, man. He goes, hey, man, I was just thinking about you. I said, man, I just needed to hear your voice. Me too. Right now, there you go. Is that entanglement? And I would say yes. I think it's a very simple, fundamental thing. I don't think it's complicated. I don't.
That's why I'm not going to try to put any other words out there.
You're the PhD. You're the doctor, not me.
And what I've learned through all of this is when I'm talking with somebody who knows he's right, which you know you're right now, I do not try to give another opinion.
When you think about this, is it possible that science, in their pursuit of string theory and the theory of everything, that it may just come down to that the one fundamental thing that they're trying to, Einstein tried to get there, right? Never did, but he tried to get to the theory of everything. Could your work be exactly what they were trying to find out?
No, because I don't try to do a theory of everything. I work incrementally from the reality I have here and continue to rise up in greater and greater complexity. So when I hear your story with your brother, I use the term, I'll use the word telepathy, but I'm staying with the idea that we all are part of a greater mind, the human mind, the collective human mind, and that some of our minds are more connected with other minds than they are with other minds. And relatives and evidence from here in Charlottesville, from the guy who started the Division of Perceptual Studies, wrote a book called Telepathic Impressions, showed that it's people who have close connections, often mother and or parent and child, mother and child, but it's close friends, it's siblings, have experiences where they experience the discomfort, the difficulties another person is having. And that contact gets made that will indicate that their experience with the other person is experiencing. For me, I learned that when I was 31 years old, standing over a sink in San Francisco.
I knew you were a hippie. I knew it. You just said it right there. You're a grown-up hippie, aren't you?
Man, I was a half-time hippie while I was a resident at Stanford, man.
I right there, you sent it to me.
I did. You got it. And if you look at the book, if you look at the story, just go to my stories about my San Francisco days. Just read a couple of those, okay? I think you'll get a kick out of them because there's some funny stories. I mean, yeah. So I was on acid at the Fillmore listening with the Grateful Dead one day. You know, those are experiences that you kind of remember.
Wait, stop, Bernie, stop right there. At that moment, did you put it all together? Did you go back to medical? Did you go back to Stanford going, you know what? I think I got something figured out.
No, because I was experiencing something that I needed to figure out. That's what I got from all that.
Same thing.
Yeah, well, that was one of my best research places into synchronicity, the Hate Street thing. I think there was a sign that said synchronicity spoken here somewhere on Haight and Ashbury.
Right.
It was that there were so many of them. I had to say, I got to stop myself from being blown out by all of these.
Right. One of my favorite pictures is before selfies were selfies. I took a selfie at Haight and Ashbury at the street sign. Yeah, I didn't plant a flag. I'm not the first person to do that, but it's one of my favorite pictures, and it's
Of
probably
course.
30, 40 years old now. I'll post it. I'll go dig it up, everybody, and I'll post it for you. But back to that. Okay, so when it's kind of like Fleming, if you think about it, right, where these patterns and these synchronicities are happening for you there. Do you think that psychedelics help you see the patterns?
No, I don't think so. I know that.
Explain.
Well, hey, take this acid and you see a lot of coincidences. That's all. Take the acid, see a lot of
Well,
coincidences.
but see, for you, for me, psychedelics didn't do that for me when I was younger, and I haven't
How
done
old?
any. Well, I haven't done any psychedelics probably since I was 20. So 41. I'm 61. So 41 years, none. Okay, but before that, and this is the 70s, there was a lot of that going on, right? But I was expecting the self awareness, insight, look at the soul, and no, it, and I tried, and I had quite a few experiences alone trying to set that intention, and it never happened for me. It was good entertainment, though. I will say that. I wrote some good songs, but yeah, it was really weird. I was hoping for patterns. I'm not kidding. But I didn't get it.
Well,
No.
just imagine the difference between you sitting in your room, wherever that was, and here I am on acid with the Grateful Dead. There's a little bit of a context. The context makes a big difference. But the first time I took acid, which I also write about in Life-Changing Synchronicities, I didn't know what it was. The woman gave it to me at midnight in LA. You may know where 36th and Vermont is, near USC.
I do.
You do. That's where I was at 36 in Vermont, taking some acid. The woman says, "You want a mystical experience?" She says, "Show up around midnight on Wednesday." So I had my little Honda S90, dropped this chick off in the Hollywood Hills, and came down around midnight to 36 in Vermont. And she says, "Here, take this thing, this milk with a little blue liquid at the bottom." And I said, "Okay." So bottoms up, and it was amazing. What I remember from it was looking at my hands, and cat's cradle with the strings between your fingers thing.
Yep. I love that.
Well, I was looking at cat's cradle with energy patterns between my fingers, like I could spread them out or bring together like there was a string. And the colors were California colors, green and gold. The hills are green and gold.
Right.
Green and gold. And this chick is looking at me doing this. And she comes, and I'm just looking at this and saying, "Wow, it's amazing." She puts her hand between my hands, and it's like the prow of a boat pushing away the waves of this energy pattern in my fingers. So I saw human energy fields for the first time. And now that's why I can say about your EMF thing, I can feel it. At dance, I know it. When you dance on acid out of the Grateful, at the Family Dog in San Francisco, you're feeling the energy of the place. All kinds of stuff is going on. Hitting Haight Street, walking down the street, there's a lot of energy. Going to Hippie Hill, there's a lot of energy. You can feel it, and stuff is happening so fast you don't know how to remember it. And I tried to remember some of it, and I wrote it down in my book, Life-Changing Synchronicities. But one of the questions that maybe you might wonder about, so I go up there on Wednesday night or Thursday morning and go over to various hippie places that I knew, and then came back to Stanford Sunday night. And on Monday at Stanford, I did tarot card readings sometimes with the residents. I did tarot card readings. And I brought Dickie the astrologer into our resident meetings with the attendings. And I brought Thaddeus Golas, who took a lot of acid and wrote a book called The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment, which he did all on acid. And
I remember that. Yeah,
you remember that?
I do.
Well,
I do.
Well, I
My
lived with
parents
that.
had all of those books. My dad, are you ready?
Go
My
ahead.
dad had every Furry Freak Brothers comic.
Oh no!
Yeah, everyone. Fat Freddy's cat. So I'm a kid.
You were there.
I was reading.
You
So
have
he had-
Mr. Natural. Do you have some
yeah,
Mr.
yeah,
Natural?
Mr. Natural, the best.
I love Mr. Natural.
So
He's
my
awful.
my dad had all the Carlos Castaneda books, and so I start reading those, and
Yeah.
I was probably, I think it was Carlos Castaneda, I'm pretty sure. I was probably 10, 11, 12, like right in there.
Wow, that's early.
And watching the energy between my fingers, right? And so I'm a kid, and there
Yeah.
was a whole chapter on how to learn how to do this, right? And I'm reading the book, right? And I'm squinting. I'm like, holy crap. You know, and when you get really good at it, right? And then suddenly, and I'm serious, I'm sure my friends are walking by looking at me, and I'm just, stretching and looking. And by the way, you said green and gold. I was green. I only saw green. I never saw another color. But I got
Were you in
really,
California?
really good.
Were you in
No,
California?
this was in Indianapolis.
Okay, well, California.
Then he gave me, I found the book, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
That's a good book.
Yeah, great book. I read that when I was like 11.
That's amazing. That's so early.
Yeah. Well, my dad, he had motorcycles. I have a Harley. I'm wearing a Harley t-shirt. Oh, an Eagles t-shirt. I'm not a Harley shirt on. I've got a Harley now, but
I just had a BSA board out 500 board out to 650. That's all.
So my dad had a BSA 500 single cylinder, right? And so so we were always breaking down carburetors and stuff. And one day we're there and we've got all the the carburetor broken down and the jets, and we're going to do whatever. And he comes in and he throws the book down on the ground. And I look and he goes, read that. Just like that. I said, okay, all right. And I did. And
how did it affect you? How did it affect you?
It didn't fix my daddy issues. I'll tell you that much. But
we're not going into that. I hope you don't mind.
No, we're not enough time on this show. I worked all those out earlier. But anyway, that book and Carlos Castaneda and the Edgar Casey stuff that was lying around the house too as well. All of that stuff, including like Eric Von Daniken, right? Chariots of the Gods. These are things that these were the books. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. You read that and you suddenly just kind of look at the world a little bit differently.
Yeah,
and I wasn't doing drugs. I was, that was much
you were learning.
later.
You were learning.
I was learning that the world is not what we are taught.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of even taking the drugs, is like, it ain't the way they tell us it is. And you were learning that very early. That's groovy, far out, and amazing.
It is groovy and far out. You know what it did teach me though? And I learned this at such a young age from these great authors, that life is a journey and everything happens for a reason. That's it. And don't look negatively at the past. It brought you to where you are now. And that sounds like a guru thing to say, but it's true. So those books, right? That thing, those carburetor jets or whatever, and and the bad and everything brought me to you. that's what I learned. It's all a part of the journey. Any little thing in the past goes this way, you and I are not here right now. And that's what I learned. And I learned that so young. I was such a trip, man. I had trippy friends too as well. That we were all kind of, reading Lord of the Rings at the same time in 8th grade or whatever. And but we were a different group of kids in school. There were those that were doing their thing and on their way to USC and were going to go on a different path, but we were a bit different. Yeah, and I'm so happy for it. Looking back, that I decided to have open eyes instead of closed eyes.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Well, it sounds like you and I are close to being the same age. You've got a couple of years on me, but everything that I just said, is that very similar to your life path too as well, and how you look at the world?
How I look at the world, yes. But life path, no. Remember, I I was fourth in the class in high school, scholar athlete, went to Swarthmore, football and baseball star, Yale playing rugby, uh, in San Francisco playing rugby, taking acid before I took acid in 65 without knowing what it was. And I never smoked weed before that. It was just acid was the first one, which is kind of an odd thing to do. I don't know if you know Andrew Weil. He was, he's integrative medicine guy. We were interns together in San Francisco. So I did the conventional thing for a long time and had side paths by coincidences, like how I took the acid was a series of coincidences, how I even got to take it and the stuff that happened. And then I learned in LA at 36th in Vermont about astrology and tarot cards. So when I hit San Francisco in the late 60s, I knew how to speak hippie. I knew astrology and tarot cards, and I knew acid, so that I could walk into that environment and know what they were doing. It's very different from what you were. I did it by experience, not by reading. I could come across the books you've talked about later, not before I started doing all that stuff.
Is it important? No, I should say, how important is it to not lose the ability to wonder and dream and ask questions and not tap out and not tap out?
You know the answer to that, and I will just underline it. Curiosity is fundamental to how I live my life and what people who see synchronicities and enjoy them have. You got to be curious about what's going on around here, because I knew, as you learned earlier than I did, but even then I kind of knew what they ain't telling me something here. They ain't telling me something. I mean, if I can imagine hitting the first pitch for a home run, and I can do that, or running the opening kickoff twice back for a touchdown, and I could do that, there's something else going on beyond what they tell us is happening. So I had hints about it. You had books that told you about it. And lucky you had the Furry Freak Brothers and Keep on Trucking. You had those guys just as wacko as you could get. They were so wonderful.
Fat Freddy, man, Fat Freddy. I always connected to Fat Freddy. I had you'll love this. This is 1978. My dad, my dad was in the Army band. And next to us on this Army base, this is down in Central America, was a husband and wife that both were in the Army band too. Like one played the tuba, one played the clarinet, whatever. And but I was probably 14, 15. They were probably 20 right? They're kids, right? In the army band. But anyway, they signed, his name was Steve, the husband. He signed my yearbook, right? And this is what he wrote. Dear Jimmy, life is not what it seems. Steve. Right? So yeah. Man, out of everything in that year, that was the one. And I went back to him. It was much later, 6 months later, maybe a year. And I go, hey man, do you remember what you wrote in my yearbook? And I read it so many times. I just kept going back and reading. He goes, yeah. I said, life is not what it seems. What do you mean? He goes, it's simple, man. Life is not what it seems. That was it. You know what I mean? So much with so few words. Very impactful. Very impactful. Life is not what it seems. Oh, man.
Jimmy, that reminds me of a prayer I learned in the synagogue that was only on Yom Kippur do you hear it, but I heard it every weekend for different reasons. And it got to the same thing, but not quite the way you heard it. And the prayer was, what are we? What is our life? What is our goodness? What is our helpfulness? What is our righteousness? What is our strength? What is our might? What can we do in thy presence, Lord our God and God of our fathers? Indeed, all heroes are as nothing before thee, the men of renown as though they never existed, the wise as if they were without knowledge, the intelligent as though they lacked understanding. For most of their doings are worthless, and the days of their lives are vain in thy sight. Man is not far above beast, for all is vanity.
Wow. Wow. I wonder when that was written.
1800s, probably. It could have been before then.
Yeah. Yeah. Powerful. And you can almost hear the answer or the response to each line with love.
Yeah, you can. And you can almost hear that. And that made me think that ain't the way they're telling us it is. Everything isn't the way it seems to be. And love, we don't have time for that, but just talking about love is so important because that's what I'm trying to get to. I'm writing another book called Psychotherapy for the Collective Human Organism, and love and interconnectedness. And earlier on, you were talking about the energy that flows through us. That's energy. I don't want to call that entanglement. I'm trying to say that there is the energy that through the green stem drives the flower. The energy that makes the flower grow, everything that moves through us, everything is moving. And we are moved by everything. And if we can feel that movement and go with that movement, it's the movement of the universe that we are part of. And it's the movement that's in each of us and that we are part of. And it's movement that we can do in a dance together if we decide to do it and begin to create a harmony that becomes something like one of the variations on love, which we all want to have, embrace, and experience.
Countries have fallen for love. Think about it. Think about that. You can quote me. You can write that down. You can write that. You can borrow that.
I have to think about it first.
Yeah, you can borrow that. But the conversation, this is how fundamental everything that you just said is. Because right now, the drive in cosmology, in physics, is dark energy. That's the buzzword, right? What is dark energy? What is the energy that is keeping the universe in its expansion and setting everything in motion, right? They can't see it. That's why it's called dark, right? They can't see it. They can't measure. And now everybody's scrambling to get these answers. And I just back up and I go, man, that's the fundamental force that you are talking about, Bernie. That's that, and I'm being very serious right now. I'm not mask off, and I think it's that fundamental, that basic, maybe the most basic and most fundamental of everything.
I agree.
How do we, how do we affect that change? How do we, or are we going to go through this naturally? Is this nature? Are trees and air and nature, right? And everything else, is this just a part of our evolution? Are we going to get there anyway?
We have this thing called free will, Jimmy. And whether you like it or not, we got it. And whether you want to argue against it, we got it. And we have a choice, individually and collectively, to become part of that force, what you're calling the dark energy, what I'm calling the force that flows through the universe, which could be very much the same thing that you're talking about. We join that together, but we join that together as human beings with each other. Let's recognize our interconnectedness, that synchronicity shows us that we are interconnected. Things with your brother are simple examples of the interconnection, which you'll call entanglement. I just like interconnection, interflowing, but we have different terms for it. And that we're interconnected with many more people. And some of those interconnections are this love of various kinds. I mean, I love many different women in many different ways. And that's the way I experience love personally, one way, besides my children and my grandchildren. But there's so many different kinds of love. And the best ones are when our primary energy signatures are able to resonate together.
When you finish the book, the new book, and I get you back on the show, I just want to enjoy the moment of having you do this. Please tell me we're going to have that moment once again, Bernie.
We will, because we're having a good time. We both know it.
You're the best. When do you think the book is going to be finished?
I'm working on it now. I don't know. I got to do it. It's when you talk about force going through, I am being driven to write this thing. I've got a rough draft. Now we could talk, if you wanted to sometime, we could talk about artificial intelligence between now and then, and how I have found artificial intelligence to be narcissistic, and how I can.
No kidding. I would love that show. Let's do that soon. And
I'd love to. I'd love to.
Man, you're in my wheelhouse now.
It's so important to warn people about the narcissism and other things of ChatGPT and DeepSeek and the other ones, because I'm so proud of myself. I submitted a paper I co-wrote with a computer scientist to an AI journal about psychotherapy for ChatGPT and other chatbots. I mean, we have to alert the public to the dangers of getting sucked into that niceness that they do. Oh, you're so smart, Jimmy. You're going to save the world, man. And so a guy says, that ChatGPT saved my soul. He saved my soul. They give you what you want and more. And we got to watch it,
man. Yeah, they feed it. Bernie's website is coincider.com. The links are below. His book is there. His work is there. His blog is there. His podcast is there. So everybody head over to coincider.com. Bernie, another great night on the show, man. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you. It's wonderful talking with you. And yeah, if you remember, get me on the list. Let me know, and I'll see you when you come here.
I can't wait, man. Let's break bread in Charlottesville. Thank you, brother.
Well, You're welcome.
Bernie Beitman, everybody. And again, his links are below, coinsider.com, and everything you need to know. The book, the blog, the podcast, and his project, the Coincidence Project, everything is right there. And tomorrow night on the show, going to let everybody know, Chris Bledsoe is here. And yes, his book, of course, is called UFO of God. We're going to talk about that and so much more. So I'll see you tomorrow night. But until then, all I've got. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go back, Lee Tappy.